Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Curious Realms coverage of the 2024 Texas Bigfoot Festival right here in Jefferson, Texas.
Yeah, man.
The Bigfoot capital of Texas. Welcome back to the show, Chester Moore.
Hey, Chris.
How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. I actually got more pep in my step than I thought. I've been on a rampage of a traveling schedule.
Yeah, same.
And some really cool stuff, though, and just a lot of things going on with wildlife. Kids are connecting kids with wildlife, and and this is kind of like a stopping point for me for a few weeks. So it's a great way to celebrate my favorite time of year, the fall, being around a lot of these great people who are interested in cryptozoology at our friend Craig's conference. So a lot of really cool stuff here, and I had a chance to talk this morning, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, your presentation was great. Let's get into that a little bit real quick.
What you got?
Well, tell the audience a little bit about your presentation. What were you here presenting on this year?
I did. I had a little bit shorter time frame this year, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do a presentation. I want to get people pumped up about the chances we have to go investigate things.
Yeah.
So I talked about strange East Texas encounters.
Okay.
And I talked about the crazy 2 vocalizations that occurred once when I was about 10 or 11 and once when I was 27, 28. And in East Texas that really made me think the whole Bigfoot phenomenon was worth examining as a journalist,
Sure.
And then I talked about some crazy sighting reports people had and some weird possible lost tribe stuff that was on my Dark Outdoors podcast.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was, I think a lot of people come, because I asked for a show of hands, and over half are new people, never been to a conference.
Wow.
And
wow.
I think a lot of people think to have an adventure, they have to go like to the Pacific Northwest or overseas or something.
Yeah.
And I'm wanting people to know they can go in their backyard, the national forest, 20 miles from their house, and maybe encounter a cool adventure and appreciate nature better. That was really what my talk was about this morning.
Well, that is a really interesting point to bring up because when you start looking specifically at Sasquatch, not just Sasquatch, but other animals, other things like the gentleman set up next to you with the book on big cats.
Yeah, Michael Mange.
I was giving him my account of West Louisiana, just across the border where I saw a large cat. My brother to this day will be like, "You're crazy, man. Yeah. You're crazy." But I saw it. It was there. And to know that, if you get out there in the woods, once you start getting out there regularly, your chances of running into something strange
I remember having a
big
conversation as a teenager with my family. I'm like, if I could ever go like in Oregon or like British Columbia or somewhere and find one Bigfoot track, that to me would be like, because I'm a hunter, killing a Boone and Crockett-sized trophy whitetail buck or a giant elk. It'd be the same thing to me. It'd be so amazing. And I've found more than a couple of tracks in my life that were out there. So I'm just I'm just the lower middle income kid in West Orange, Texas that got to do a lot of cool stuff. And I want to let other people know that there's an on-ramp for them to enjoy nature as well.
Yeah, precisely. And that is a lot of what not only and I'll call it straight up what it is, what your ministry is.
Yeah, man.
Is helping underprivileged children and other people get out into the wilderness.
It's really,
go and explore that.
Yeah, we just got back from Tennessee with some kids in our Wild Wishes program. And our mission is to bring the love of Christ to hurting children through wildlife encounters. And hurting children can mean a lot of things. Yeah. A lot of times it's loss of a sibling or or a parent or terminal illness. We have another organization that brings sex trafficking victims to us that we work with.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's meeting kids at our facility where we have our exotic animals or in the field. And we just got back from the Smokies. 2 little girls from Orange, Texas' dream was to go to the Smokies, and they qualified.
Wow.
Their families went. We helped facilitate that. And then we had a little boy I met at the Tennessee Wildman and Cryptid Con. His dream was he qualified, and his dream was to be a wildlife photographer. So we spent a couple of days in the field with them photographing elk that have been restored there.
Wow.
Wild turkeys, bears.
Wow.
And it was just so cool to see those kids be kids.
Yeah.
Because what happens, Chris, is like somebody will have something on March 16th. This tragedy happens to them. Maybe they lost their dad or something, right? Or mom. In their mind, life will never get better than March the 15th.
Yeah.
So there's a cap. So if we can take them into a place that has beautiful things they're interested in and let them have an experience, they can see that life still has hope. And that's kind of the way we do it. And we've done Bigfoot expeditions like that with kids too.
Yeah.
The third Wild Wish we've done our Wild Wishes program. We just did the 253rd kid in the program.
Wow.
And the third kid that we did in the program wanted a Bigfoot thing.
Yeah.
I talked about that in my presentation.
I remember that.
And it was such a fun experience. But really, that's what that stuff's about, because me and my wife love kids, and it's a way to instill hope and have fun. And at the end of the day, we're all playing Scooby-Doo out here.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the mystery machine looking for monsters. And like I say, one day we're going to go up to old Mr. Johnson in the ape suit and pull, and it's not going to be an ape suit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really not an ape suit this time.
Yeah,
it's really a Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, like even to watch you with Gulf Coast Great Whites now.
Yeah, man.
And your passion with that really shows the example of why you need to encourage children.
Yeah, man.
Because seeing your verve with that, like you got into all of this because of your love of great whites, because of a book you had when you were like 8 years old.
Yeah,
that's what led you to your entire career.
Yeah, man. And I'm reading Dangerous Sea Creatures, and I had just seen Jaws, and my mind was just like, and. A little over a month ago, I'm with the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy at the end of a boat looking at a great white shark, a 12-foot great white under our boat that had been tagged, and working on a documentary. My friend Paul Fazinski, we're doing a documentary about the return of great whites in the Gulf.
Cool.
And their journey begins in the Atlantic, so we went there, and then we're doing stuff in the Gulf. So that's cool, and that is GulfGreatWhites.com, my shameless plug for my blog. Go subscribe. It's the official blog of Great White Sharks.
That's right.
Mexico. But what that is about is a conservation triumph, because great whites were nearly wiped out to a certain extent. I mean, in the Gulf, it was like mythical. It was like seeing a Bigfoot to people.
Yeah.
I did a story called Jaws Rising in like 20 years ago in Tide magazine, and it was controversial because I listed a report and I talked about some old accounts. There are no great whites in the Gulf. And then a group called Ostert started putting satellite tags in them about 6 years later, and they popped up around Panama City, Florida, and all that. And then we have this one from the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy that's February 26th of 2024. It was 100 yards off the beach in South Padre Island.
Yeah.
Her name was Lebeth. She's kind of the star of our documentary.
Yeah.
All 2,600 pounds of her.
Wow.
I mean, she's a beast.
That's a massive, massive animal.
Yeah, and so it's about that conservation triumph and, some cool stuff, and let people know not all the mysteries are solved.
Yeah. Well, and even the fact of, if it's almost kind of like if you're on land being near a spider. If you're in the water, you're probably pretty close to a shark and you don't even realize it. Like even the videos that you showed me.
You saw how close the beach was.
It was like it was 15-foot deep water. It was like prime surfing water.
The average, we were probably average of a quarter mile offshore, average, but many times we were within 250, 300 yards of shore and looking around. And that group does great work because they also do, like, safety awareness.
Yeah.
They have shark alerts, like, hey, we just saw a great white 100 yards from the beach. Here's the beach. You can make your own decision what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I saw some brothers out there surfing, and I was like, Lord help them. I don't know if these guys got the memo.
Yeah.
But I like that information. It's not trying to scare. They're not trying to scare people.
Yeah.
But they're trying to inform them. And it's fun, man. And, I was sitting there talking to all these shark scientists, and they all have a story like me somehow. Megan, who's the head biologist there or whatever, was a little girl in Florida thinking she's going to have to go to Australia when she's an adult to become a shark scientist.
Yeah.
And now she's, a shark scientist in America, on the Atlantic coast. So it's really cool. And to see that, in my life, when I was a kid, I didn't have a cap. Like, I thought I would never see a great white. I didn't ever think it's impossible. But it wasn't within the realm of probably going to happen.
Yeah, well, and the idea of once again, oh my God, if I want to see a great white, I've got to go to Australia.
Yeah,
I've got to go to the other side of the globe to see one, and not the case.
Yeah, so now I've been able to say I've done great white encounter or work as a journalist in the Pacific, off the coast of California, now in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So that's just from the little kid in me. Is a cool perspective, but we're going to be doing some special stuff. We did a thing called Summer of the Shark this year, sponsored by the Coastal Conservation Association.
Cool.
And we brought kids to the shark cage at the Texas State Aquarium.
Oh.
And we've done that 3 times now over the years. We're going to be doing more of that.
Cool.
And go snorkel with sharks, and you're in a shark cage, and the sandbar sharks swim right from me to you.
Wow.
And there's a girl named Marina. Marina, baby, if you're watching, you're awesome. She's going to be a marine biologist. She is graduated now. She got to go in with us. I'll never forget. It's me and her on this one side of the cage. I'm over here to the right. She's right here. And I kind of turn her around. She pops out of the water. Dude, this is the greatest moment of my life. Boom. Back in the water. And I'm like, that's what that's about, you know?
Yeah. No, precisely. It's about trying to make somebody's dream come true.
Yeah, man.
And really about education, because when you, especially I'm just a few years younger than you, but I remember Jaws when I was a kid, and the fact of when you get older and you start realizing, like, a lot of the, quote, science that's in Jaws, like, where they're like, this is very rare in these waters. Like, it's not that rare in those waters. You know, things like that. And even the idea that that movie led to a mass global panic that literally led to almost the destruction of an entire species of animal.
But I think Jaws has been a major net positive for sharks.
I would generally think so.
Because what happened was, after people got over that in about a decade, Jaws got a lot. Most of these scientist origin stories, Jaws got them interested.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been a net positive in the long run. I mean, I'm an example. But what was cool, you mentioned that Jaws. It was filmed in Martha's Vineyard, which is across Nantucket Sound from Cape Cod.
And from the National Oceanographic.
So I wasn't thinking about that. And I drive down to Woods Hole, and it says the Oceanographic Institute. I said, oh, my God, it's the Oceanographic Institute on the mainland that Richard Dreyfuss talked about. So I'm like fanboying out, taking pictures in front of. I'm like, I'm in Jaws world. And then I got to go across, and we got to go film at the Jaws Bridge, where it came under the bridge into the pond, and then we got to film at the beach where a little boy got hit, the scariest scene in the movie. And so, you know, I always look at, like, if you take pop culture, a lot of times stuff gets wrong in it, but it's what we do with it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Jaws is. And next year is the 50th anniversary of Jaws.
Yeah.
So I am excited to release our Gulf Great Whites documentary, and we're in almost the final stages of filming, and then it's going to be crafting the story out. Because what I do is I'll take the story. I know the basic story we're going to film, and then once we get what we get, I go through it and go, okay, this is really what it's going to be. It's going to flesh out to this.
Yeah.
Paul Fazinski, who's my buddy who films and does the editing and stuff, done our Hyrcana wildlife documentaries, Aptitude Outdoors. He's done some really great filming, and since we met through Bigfoot stuff, by the way, it was crazy. I look at him. He's on the top. He's on the end of the boat, and he's looking down, and there's the great white, and I'm like, how do we get here, you know?
Well, and it is one of those, you know, you have to step back and see that. And even knowing what you do, once again, education-wise, with younger children when it comes to higher calling wildlife, but also with the education stuff that you put out with Dark Outdoors, I think is one of the most important things out there, especially for communities like this that almost encourage the concept of, you know, go out into the woods by yourself.
Yeah.
Go out into make sure nobody knows where your squatching spot is. No, you want at least 2 people to know where your squatching spot is. You got to
have a game plan.
You know,
always talk about, like, have a couple of people who know where you're going to be.
Yeah. At
least where you're going to be parked, that area, general area, a time you're going to be out of there.
Yeah.
You know, have a transponder on you, you know, which is a device that can sound to a satellite. You can hit a button, it goes to your GPS coordinates for emergency places. If you can, pack heat, know what to do with it if it happens. And, you know, and have emergency supplies. And because on Dark Outdoors is kind of the thing that goes, like, it's like the behind the scenes of everything I do.
Yeah.
It's like it covers all of it somehow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the idea, someone asked me, hey, Chester, what's the most dangerous thing in the woods? And I'm like, oh, that's easy, people. And that's where it started.
I quite literally just posted an article last night.
Yeah.
And almost tagged you in it.
Okay.
I should have.
Yeah.
I'll go back
Anytime,
and find it and tag you in
please
it.
do.
I typically do whenever it's like,
Yeah.
hey, this is great fodder for your show. But quite literally, it was an investigation that they thought may have been a wild animal or something like that killed somebody, I believe, in the Olympia Woods.
Wow.
Or Olympia National Forest. And they have come out and said, like, no, this person was killed by a person.
Wow. See?
This person was killed in their campsite.
Wow. You know what's interesting about that? I think back before people in law enforcement were as tuned into some of these serial killers and stuff.
Yeah.
How many, because what happens if people are out there for a while, animals are going to scavenge the body.
That's right.
How many bodies are actually killed by a person and then an animal gets to blame because it's been scavenged?
Yeah.
You know? Like you got to wonder.
Because it's been torn open, things like that.
If it was a strangulation or a knife wound.
Yeah.
You know, not a bullet wound.
Yeah.
So I think people need to know that there are some disturbed, evil individuals. And I have no problem using the word evil. I had somebody go, Chester, that's too strong of language to be. Let me tell you something.
Yes and no.
If you're willing to go rape and mutilate a little kid out in the woods, you're freaking evil.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to just call you out what you are. And I don't want you in the woods. But if it takes someone protecting themselves and they walk out and you don't, we want the good people to make it out of the woods.
That's right.
And most of the time, it just requires a cool head. Like, I'm feeling a weird feel. I need to go there. Or guys are the worst, though.
Yeah.
Because we have to be a strong guy. Someone confronts you on the trail or a weird thing. Chicken out is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Chicken out. Take your ego and chicken out because you don't want to escalate to that point.
Yeah.
And I had to get my dad out of a situation one time. We had this situation on this hunting property we were on, and there was this really strange guy, and I was off in the off season. We were allowed to access anywhere on the property. I'm walking through, and his deer blind he had a ground blind open, and the entire inside of the blind was covered with pornography, like on the walls.
Yeah.
And I'm going, that's the guy that walks out here? No, that's really weird. And I'm like, this is not good. Well, my dad ended up having a confrontation with him over something out there, and my dad had a hard time coming down.
De-escalating.
So I pull up, and my dad's in this guy's face, who's like a foot taller. He's like almost 7 in his buddy. And I'm like, how do I get out of there? My dad's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, how do I de-escalate?
Yeah.
I'll make my dad mad at me. So I got in there, and I made my dad mad at me. Kind of like taking the other guy's side, and I'm like, and I was able to get my dad, like, get him in the vehicle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you got to de-escalate. You know?
Do.
And don't be stupid, you know, and.
Well, even the idea of, I can push on further. I can,
that's probably the most
maybe
thing.
You shouldn't.
So
you shouldn't.
I had
you don't
Randy,
need to man up and go another mile.
Randy Minotaur, who's written 7 books on deaths in national parks, was the last episode of Dark Outdoors. And she said in Long's Peak, where we like to go up in Estes Park, Colorado, that's what happens. People say, I'm just going to keep pushing.
Yep.
And they're not fit, or the weather's bad, or whatever.
Or they're unprepared, don't have enough water
they don't have enough
to get
stuff,
through the night.
So that's the most dangerous. So there's a lot of things like that. And, you're probably not going to run into a serial killer.
No.
But the elements are always there.
Well, is serial killer or not, you may well run into an encampment of people, depending on where you are, especially in Texas. You may well run into a group of people growing things illegally in the national forest, a group of people cooking things illegally in the national forest.
My story of what inspired Dark Outdoors was Murder Mountain, which is the Netflix series. We talked about that before, and I didn't ever heard of such a thing.
Yeah.
It's way before the Netflix series. And a game warden tells me, you need to go watch Murder Mountain, because that's where you were, brother. And I was right by this place called Murder, within 5 miles of the actual Murder Mountain.
Yeah, the green triangle is Emerald Triangle.
It was unbelievable. But another thing is, my first episode was about Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Because he actually took women into a national forest in one area and killed them. He clubbed them in the head.
Yeah.
And I'm on Instagram a lot, and I'll see these really beautiful young girls that are like, in Daisy Dukes, backcountry hiking by themselves, or backcountry hunting by themselves. And I'm like, to one of those people, that's like a pit bull to a pork chop.
Yeah.
And so the guy, Stephen Michaud, this is the confessions of he was a guy who sat across from Bundy for 6 months, interviewed him every day. And when I ask him, if I ran into Bundy, let's say he were alive, and I'm backcountry fly fishing, and I saw him trying to rape a woman, I'm going to intervene. How would he respond? He goes, oh, how tall are you? 6 foot. He's like 5'8", 10. He'd have ran. But if you're a woman, and then his whole demeanor changed, he could not have helped himself.
Yeah.
And chances are he saw you, and he went into this whole thing. So, ladies, if you're listening, be a little extra cautious.
Yeah.
And don't go alone. Nobody should be going alone.
That's right.
You may go hunt a different spot alone, but go to the journey somebody else nearby.
Yeah. Have a meeting spot, have a meeting time to check in.
Let people know, and be careful out there, because there are predators, and there are real predators, and we want you to make it home safe.
Yeah.
And but I'm like going, this chick is the introduction to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where they're going.
Yeah.
Like, I have a friend of mine, Marcy, beautiful lady, and Marcy, we used to always call her the intro to a horror movie, because she would go around like wearing Daisy Dukes, and she collected like arrowheads in like some weird old glass.
Yeah.
And they'd be out in some backcountry by herself, and I'm like, you are the introduction to every slasher movie. We told her this for years, and she listened to episode 1 of Dark Outdoors on Bundy and goes, I'm going to get a concealed handgun permit, and learn how to take care of myself.
That's right.
So that's what it's about. It's what it's about. And men too. I mean, like, young people. I mean, be very cautious with your kids. Yeah. Going to some of these areas.
I mean, just anywhere, man. Quite literally, it was a big point of pride when I heard this from my wife about my son. This happened all of a couple weeks ago. They were just at a general store, and he was over looking at some ice cream, and some dude just came up. She was at the counter.
Wow.
He was about 10 steps behind her.
Yep.
And some guy came up and just started talking. Oh, you're looking at the ice cream. What are you looking at getting?
Yeah,
things like that. And she was just like, a little over friendly. And she was like, I got skeeved out immediately, and went over to him. And he was obviously trying to get my boy to talk with him, things like that. Wow. And my boy just kept looking at the ice cream.
Yep.
And kept himself quiet. And when they got in the car, my wife had the conversation with him like, hey, did that feel uncomfortable for you? He was like, yeah, that was really weird, and that's why I didn't talk to him.
A smart kid.
And she was like,
great news.
Pay attention to that.
Great news.
She was like, that is called a creeper.
Yeah.
And if you get that creepy feeling, walk away from it, go tell somebody.
When I was a kid, we played Little League, a place called Wesco Little League, and we've been hearing about someone the locals called the Candyman. And they said he had a van. They all have a van. They all have a van, don't they? And they would try to pick up girls.
Yeah.
Well, me and like three or four kids from my team, our game was over. We went to the park next door, and we're getting on the merry-go-round, and there's 2 little girls pull up on a bike, and there's a white van parked there, and the guy opens the door and has a bag of candy. We saw this happen. You girls like to have some candy or whatever? And I remember we were like in maybe 6th grade. We had our bats and stuff. We grabbed our bats. Asshole. We run over there, and like we're running, and the guy speeds off.
Yeah.
But we saw that.
Yeah.
And like that really ingrained in my mind that was a real thing. It wasn't like a myth anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're bringing that up about like child safety, because in the outdoors part, little people are also targets of animal predators and more like.
Yeah.
So your kid is more likely to be on a hiking trip hit by a mountain lion or something like that than you are.
Mountain lion, bear, something like that.
So make sure and be very cautious in how, not too far behind you, stick close to you on trails.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
And also that creeper awareness. The fact that, like, I feel uncomfortable right now. Like, when something is stalking you in the woods, you will feel it. You will feel those eyes on you.
But you brought up something cool, like, it's a good thing, because, like, when you said about the creeper feeling and all that, you took it from being like a mysterious wilderness into like Walmart or a store.
Yeah.
And people need to know it's in the backyard. And that's part of on Dark Outdoors is I got a book coming out, my first Dark Outdoors book coming out next year. The book's called Phantom Legacy. And it's about what I believe is a legacy and a pattern of killing started by the Texarkana Phantom. And it goes into today. Yeah. And it literally, I get chills thinking about my first click and went, oh my God, he started it all. And it continued. So you got 2 kind of people when they think of like getting creeped out in locations. Inner city. Yep. A lot of gangs and, just derelicts and stuff like that happens. It could get dangerous at night.
Yeah.
Then you got people who get creeped out. Well, we're way off in the middle of the national forest. The most dangerous places I've found statistically are the little urban forests and parks slightly out of the city.
Where the two meet.
Exactly.
It's where that boundary between the two is.
And that's where the Phantom did his stuff. That's where the Zodiac Killer did his stuff, who was the first acolyte of the Phantom. And I got a whole thing talking about these patterns. But what's interesting, Chris, is, and I respect the fact that you're always putting things out there and you're connecting dots and all kind of stories that the media doesn't connect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like,
I appreciate that. And in the realm, you'll see these crimes reported. But when you go look at them on Google Earth, you go, oh, that explains it.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And so that's what the book Phantom Legacy is going to be about. And
fantastic.
And I'll give a little teaser. This has never been mentioned publicly yet. You get some exclusive stuff. So I had metal bands for a long time.
Yeah.
And I am releasing a song to go with the Phantom Legacy book.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a song that was written a long time ago, and my band Freak 13 played it live for the last 6 months of our existence on tour and stuff. We never recorded it, but it is being recorded.
Cool.
And it's called The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
All right.
And it's going to go with the Phantom Legacy book. So there's going to be some fun package stuff with it, too.
Great.
Yeah. Maybe some physical media with it, too.
So. Well, I cannot wait. Chester, thank you so much for the time. It's always great seeing you here on site. It's always great seeing you share your ministry.
Thank you, man.
And call with other people. Let everybody know where they can go to find out more about Higher Calling Wildlife, where they can go to find out more about Gulf Coast great whites and dark outdoors.
So there's a lot of creepy. I got creepy websites, ministry websites. So go to highercalling.net, and there's links to everything there. But at the Chester Moore on Instagram, GulfGreatWhites.com is the Gulf Great Whites blog. I have Chester Moore Wildlife Journalist and Investigator YouTube, and I launched yesterday the Global Bigfoot YouTube.
Oh, awesome!
So a lot of places, and Dark Outdoors is available on every podcasting platform. Whether you're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple Podcasts, whatever, we're on there. And I've had fun. That's a really challenging project to do.
Yeah.
It's the hardest media project I've ever done in my life. But we've had some really cool things happen, and next year it's entering the book realm. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Well, congratulations,
Thank you, buddy.
man.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for always being here, man.
You bet. While you are online checking out all the amazing work of Chester Moore, everybody, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe. That is where you can also get your copy of the Field Observation and Encounter Log. If you are an investigator out in the woods looking for Sasquatch, if you're a paranormal investigator, you can now begin getting your data ready to shake the hands with science. When we come back from this quick break, we will continue with our coverage of the 2024 Texas Bigfoot Festival right here in Jefferson, Texas, right after this. The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the Field Observation and Encounter Log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store.